This week on the Aviators, wondering if it's too late in life to get into flying? We'll show you that it's never too late to learn to fly. Joe has a chance to ride in the most iconic helicopter of all time, the UH-1 Huey. And Curtis takes to the air with the Geico Skytypers as he learns to fly in formation.
Aviators.
Many fans of this show have likely seen the Aviators crew at events like AirVenture or Sun and Fun. And if you've been to our booth, well, you've likely met this man, Wayne Ellis.
I consider myself really fortunate. I get to go to all of the major events. I go to Oshkosh, I go to Sun and Fun. Literally, I'm blessed because I get to meet thousands of fans of the Aviators and have had wonderful experiences.
Wayne is also a pilot who got into aviation relatively late in life and now flies a Savannah light sport aircraft.
Well, it was my second year of retirement after being a school principal, and I decided to pursue a pilot's license. Always wanted to do that, but probably could never afford it with a young family, and the job was very demanding, but it was a heavy time commitment, 2 nights a week, 3 hours a night with a 15-minute break. So a lot of studying, but very, very worthwhile. It was not easy to go back to school at 57 years of age.
Wayne elected to train for a recreational pilot's permit in Canada, which is very similar to the U.S. sport pilot license, with the big difference being that the Canadian permit does require at least a Category 4 medical certificate, as merely having a driver's license isn't quite enough. Of course, flying as a recreational or sport pilot does have its limitations, but the cost of getting your license is significantly lower than a full private pilot's license. On top of that, a lot of light sport aircraft, like the Savannah, are very affordable to operate.
The cost comparisons are just, there are no real, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, because this airplane is powered by a 100 horsepower Rotex 912 ULS engine, and it uses high-test automotive gasoline. Right now, that's about $1.37 a liter, in comparison to avgas, which is up over $2 a liter. So, and the flying costs in this airplane are just, they're so good. It's I can honestly state that it's less than $20 an hour. So there you go.
Under the light sport class in the US or the advanced ultralight class in Canada, the Savannah cannot be used for commercial purposes, although this aircraft is certainly suited to getting in and out of some interesting spots. With its fixed leading-edge slats and flaperons replacing the traditional ailerons, the Savannah can take off and land in a very short distance.
And the ground roll on it, in comparison to a Cessna 150, which is about 750 feet, the ground roll on this is 45 feet. And landing roll is 90 feet. So it's classified as extreme because of those characteristics. First time I took my wife up, she actually looked at me and said, why did we go out to the runway? And I've had people in the tower, one of the tower controllers have said that it's very, very impressive, but you know, it just gets up in the air extremely quickly.
One of the common misconceptions with light sport aircraft is the idea that they're only intended for putzing around your local airport, or that they may be too small or too uncomfortable for a long trip. They can't be flown IFR, but if you want to fly VFR and don't mind taking your time, you can cover a great distance in one of these aircraft.
In a Cessna 150, 2 passengers in the front are rubbing shoulders side by side. This cabin is 42 inches wide and with the bubble windows, and it's extremely comfortable inside. This airplane was put together in High River, Alberta, and I have flown this airplane the 2014 statute miles back here to Oshawa. It was a beautiful trip in the wintertime, absolutely fantastic. So it's also a good cross-country machine. So it's a pleasure to fly, whether it be short distances or long distances. Great airplane.
Flying a light sport aircraft is also a great way to get involved in the aviation community. You'll need to store your aircraft somewhere, and you're likely going to find that your local flying club is a great place to meet other pilots.
Well, my airplane now, I consider it a real pleasure. You know, you get to know people. There's about 150 airplanes here at the Oshawa Airport, and I've got to know a lot of people here. The added bonus is that you make friends, and had to get the opportunity to go up in their airplanes because they're proud of their little babies, and just like I am of this one. And so it's nice to be able to go with people and enjoy the same passion that you have. I would strongly encourage anyone who's thinking about getting into aviation to consider the advanced ultralight or light sport option. The opportunity to get your license is going to cost you less money than a full private license. You'll have just as much fun. You'll have very few restrictions. I encourage you to find somebody who owns one. They'd probably be more than happy to take you up and have a flight with them. Then take one in a 150, a traditional trainer, and you'll see that you'll just have just as much fun and you'll be spending less money. And so that's the way to get into aviation without it being a really large hit on your pocketbook.
When it comes to the Vietnam War, few images are more recognizable than a Huey dropping troops into a landing zone. Officially known as the Iroquois, the UH-1 family of aircraft is one of the most produced families of helicopters in history. The Huey enabled the creation of air mobile or air cavalry doctrines that literally revolutionized how the Army moved about the battlefield.
Taking troops in by APCs, they realized they could put them in a Huey and airlift them into certain LZs.
Jim Brennan has more than 7,000 hours experience flying the Huey with the U.S. Army, including time in Vietnam.
It was a lot actually safer as opposed to spending 2-3 days walking through the bush trying to get to an LZ and secure it or whatever. So it was developed for that reason, and it became an icon of the Vietnam War. 3,500 to 4,000 aircraft were built. But regardless of that, the primary mission was a troop insertion aircraft. And it developed, they used some of them for medevac, and sometimes the aircraft, even though it was an air assault, sometimes the same crew that took troops in would come back in and pick up the wounded, in case medevac wasn't readily available.
The UH-1H, the most common model used in Vietnam, and the one seen here, carried up to 13 passengers, including 2 waist or door gunners. While there are doors on the Huey that can slide closed, they were usually left open to allow troops to get in and out as quickly as possible.
When anti-aircraft, if it's hot, you have limited performance. Well, we usually flew with the seats out, so the troops just sat on the deck. Crew chief and gunner sat in the well in the back behind the M60 machine gun, and basically everybody else just climbed on board. There wasn't any seat belts or any of that stuff to be concerned with because you weren't in a training environment. It was a combat environment, and so subsequently you were able to load them quick, unload them quick. Most of the time when you're in an LZ, hot or cold, they usually want to get off the aircraft before you even touch down. So sometimes a little wobbling going on with a CG shift and stuff like that. Because in all honesty, they wanted away from the aircraft because Charlie would primarily work, target the aircraft first because the grunts, he can catch them later. So they wanted to be away from the aircraft. So, but it was a quick insertion type of thing, in, out, you're touchdown and you're gone.
Comparable to a World War II Jeep or even a Humvee today, the Huey was modified and used for all sorts of different purposes. Prior to the introduction of a dedicated attack helicopter like the Cobra, the Huey gunship was the primary choice to soften up an LZ prior to troop insertion. The designation of UH stands for Utility Helicopter, and the Huey certainly fulfilled that role. From troop transport to gunship to medevac to heavy lifting, the Huey could do it all.
So you carry a lot of troops or a lot of equipment and supplies. You're carrying a lot of weight. You have one rotor with 2 blades, and they're very large. Is that where we get the famous rap?
Well, yeah, the slapping of the blades, you know, depending on the wind, the airspeed, and stuff like that. And that's the iconic sound. And basically, you'd load people or ammo on board, and the old rule of thumb: if it'll hover, it'll fly. It's a little sluggish getting up, kick out a box, let's try it again. So we didn't get too wrapped up in PPC, performance planning cards and stuff like that. If it'll hover, it'll fly. And then of course we monitor our gas, didn't take a lot of gas if we knew that the mission was close, you know, the LZ or the location we're going to was close. And again, you know, it'll hold a lot of people. It's 9,500 pounds, and I'm sure some of us have been heavier than that when we took off. You know, I mean, the book says its gross weight is 9,500 pounds. I know we've lifted more than that, you know.
Today, Jim and the Army Aviation Heritage Foundation fly their collection of Hueys in Vietnam livery all over the country. Variants of the original Huey are still in production and being used all over the world by the military and civilians. But for several generations of Americans, the Huey will always be associated with Vietnam.
So Jim, my dad flew in Vietnam, and he flew the Huey, and so I'm really excited to talk to you today and learn so much about this helicopter. And it's actually my first time that I have an opportunity to fly in a helicopter as well. So it's pretty cool for me that my first helicopter ride is in one that my dad flew in combat as well. And since you had that experience yourself, and now you're flying, giving rides to people who have experience with this so close, what's that like for you to see the reaction from people who have a history with this aircraft?
Well, it's very emotional for a lot of guys. I mean, you get stories. A guy comes up and he said, the last time I was in his aircraft, it was taking me out of hot LZ with, you know, leg wounds or whatever, or it's taking me into a hot LZ. But they said when they heard the sound of a Huey, they knew it was going to be okay. And so it's emotional for a lot of people. We run into people at air shows that haven't even been next to an aircraft in 40 years. And they come up and they're in awe and they want to sit in it. Not so much the front, they want to be in the back where they used to be, you know, going into a combat assault. Occasional pilots say, well, you want to hop up front? Sure, hop up front. You know, I'm one of the fortunate ones after all these years, still get to fly the Huey. So when it took me to the dance, you know, and it took me home, and I can't say enough about the aircraft.
Hi, I'm Rob Ryder. Jet pilots often train in multi-million-dollar flight simulators. Many personal aircraft flight schools supplement their airplane training with less complicated flight simulation. From tabletop boxes to large devices with sophisticated graphics, these simulation products run the gamut. Some have motion, but most do not. Regardless of its sophistication, when properly used, simulation can be beneficial to the student.
Last year, Curtis had a chance to fly the T-6 Texan and experience a little of what it was like for a recruit learning to fly in World War II. Since that time, Curtis has been checked out in the Canadian equivalent of the Texan, the Harvard, and has gained many hours in the venerable warbird. This year, Curtis had a chance to take his flying to a new level and fly formation with the Geico Skytypers. The Skytypers not only demonstrate military and formation flying tactics in their airshow routine, but rely on flying in precise formation to carry out their signature skytyping. This makes team lead Larry Arkin and all of the Skytyper pilots experts on formation flying.
So Larry, formation flying involves an awful lot more than two airplanes flying close together in the sky. There's a lot of thought and preparation and planning that goes into it. What are some of the basic elements that define what formation flying really is?
Formation flying to me starts off with standardization. Everybody has to be doing the same thing in a formation flight so that as an element you can all move symmetrically. So there's a way to get in, as you know, there's a way to stay there, and there's a way to get out. There's also a way to get out if you're in trouble. That standard that's set is something that has to be understood before you put any formation flight together, whether it be 2 airplanes or you put 6 airplanes as we do in our Delta.
Flying in formation was originally born out of a military need to protect vulnerable aircraft with more nimble or better armed aircraft. From there, different types of formations developed, and the tactical advantages of formation flying became clear. As we learned earlier this season with the B-17, formation flying allowed groups of B-17s to develop defensive fields of fire. Today, most military fighters still operate in pairs at the very least, for reasons that go beyond just the tactical.
Obviously, for the air show demonstration, we want to be in formation, but when we go in cross countries and we move the airplane around, it's much easier to move us as an element that is together than to have single ship airplanes 3 or 4 miles and trail to each other. Plus, one other thing that's very, very important to both the military and us is mutual support. When you have a wingman, he's your mutual support to give you frequencies, to give you airspace indications, to tell you, hey, you have an airport to your left. Hey, you have an oil leak under your airplane. God forbid you're on fire. He is your extra set of eyes. He gives you that mutual support. So for many reasons, the military and us as well like that whole flavor of the formation flying for the added safety and the value that it gives us.
At its core, formation flying requires a lead aircraft and a wingman. Just like dancing, one aircraft has to lead and one aircraft has to follow. Both aircraft trying to follow could result in a lot worse than stepped-on toes.
So now, what are some of the things or the skills or references you use to actually maintain the position of the aircraft?
You know, what we do as every formation flight is it's done with formation marks. Okay, for every aircraft, what you do is you set up a series of formation marks as we have briefed you. And those marks are the marks that we use to maintain a constant bearing on the airplane you're flying on or constant position.
Basically, we're looking at, like you said, 3 lines of reference. What we use in the Sky Typers is pretty much based on what they use in the FAST system. We've just adapted it to our airplanes a little bit. We use this is the inner aileron hinge. We put the inner aileron hinge lined up with the number on the cowl. What we also use is we use the horizontal stab line coming out right here, and that's about 20 degrees.
By referencing 3 points on the other aircraft, it's possible to hold yourself in a set position. For the Sky Typers, the main horizontal reference is a bearing line from the inner aileron hinge to the numbers on the cowling of the lead aircraft. For the second horizontal reference, they use the forward edge of the horizontal stabilizer. Where these 2 lines intersect is where the wingman should be.
So right now, I'm looking at the inside aileron hinge.
Yep.
I see the number.
So that's reasonably lined up for me.
Okay. And then I'm looking over here at the forward edge of the horizontal stabilizer.
I need to come up a little bit to get that together, which brings me in a little bit.
Okay. And then let's kneel down.
Until we can see.
Now, we can't get low enough right now, but this is basically the position you're going to be flying in.
All right.
So what you're going to do is you're going to be looking at all 3 positions. You're going to be using your lineup with the aileron hinge and the number, put the number on top of the wing. You're going to be looking off of the horizontal stabilizer, give you a basic point out here in space, and then you're going to go vertical enough to see the step on the other side of the airplane, just lined up with the fuselage.
So echelon diamond, it's all the same.
Because the whole system relies on visual references, it's important for the wingman to always be able to see the aircraft that they're forming on. And while it may not look like it from the ground, the wingman always maintains some form of step down from the lead aircraft. This ensures that if the lead were to suddenly fall back for some reason, they would not be going backward into another aircraft. To do this, the Sky Typers use the top of the step on the outside wing of the lead aircraft as a vertical reference. Now, because everyone else is basing their movement off the lead aircraft, the lead has to be very conscious of how they fly.
How do you fly differently when you have people on your wings? The actual hands and feet of it.
Typically, I fly smooth anyway. Okay. But when you're flying with people on your wing, your movements have to be much slower, and much more consistent. I can't take the throttle, for instance, if I want to slow down and just pull the throttle back. I have to ease the throttle back so that everybody has a chance to pull their power back so they don't overrun me. When I start a turn, I have to start the turn by rolling into the turn just a little bit, because I don't tell them whether I'm turning left or right usually. I just start to turn. So the way they know that is if I just start to ease into the turn, they'll go, okay, boss is turning left, let me increase the power, let me start running the bearing line, and then I can increase the roll rate once I know that they've had their power set. So it's a little bit of I send them a message, either by my movements or by changes in trend, and they pick up on that change in trend. It's a line abreast formation, which is obviously not as unique, but what's very unique about it is it's a very big formation. When you fly formation, it's actually easier to fly close. People go, oh wow, you're so close. It's actually much easier to fly close because you can see all the movements much quicker. When we do our front line or line abreast formation for sky typing, there's two things that are unique. First of all, it's almost 3 wingspans apart, so the movements when we're sitting out there are a lot slower to see, so it's a lot harder. We do that because we want to increase the size of the letter and get the letter to look right. The other thing that's a little bit different is we don't look to be absolutely level. The guys on the inside fly a tad high so that the guy on the outside can see underneath him. Why is that important? Because everybody's flying off the lead airplane with the computer to keep the letter straight. So when you get out far, if this guy is moving around a little bit, we don't want this guy whipsawing out here and moving around even more, so he stays on number 1 aircraft or the lead aircraft. So if this guy's moving around a little bit, he might move, but the other guy's going to be solid because he's still working off lead. So it creates two things. Instead of flying off your wingman, we're referencing our wingman, but we're flying off the lead aircraft. We're in a much wider formation, which makes it harder to fly, and we're a little bit staggered on our height so we can see underneath the airplanes and yet keep everybody in sight.
For not just riding in the back, but flying from the front seat of the SkyTypers aircraft, Curtis received the coveted SkyTypers patch and a whole new appreciation for their formation flying.
I'll wear it proudly.
For a great job. So what'd you think of today's event?
That was a lot of fun. It's pretty intense. You know, when we're sitting there and Tom is there and Ken's leading, it's a lot more going on, a lot more to look at.
Yep.
One of the things that amazes me is how much you must trust your guys that you fly with. You guys are flying in such unforgiving places. I think the people that watch you fly, whether it's really up high, but probably even more so when you're doing your airshow routine down low, really tight together, I think it's hard to imagine from the outside when it looks so delicate and it looks like a ballet, how much work is actually happening in the cockpits to make it look that easy.
You know, but you did a great job. It was great to fly with you. My inputs into you, you took the inputs, you made the corrections that were needed. And it's just great to see someone that did not only a great job, but eats this up the way we do.
Oh man.
I saw your grin almost from the back seat shooting out from your helmet.
I bet Ken could see it from Lee when I pulled up there, and I took a deep breath for a second. It was like this big grin.
If the sun was out, he would have had shining teeth. It would have been very hard to see.
Yeah, you've made my month. There's no doubt about that. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Great job.
That was really fantastic.
Seasons 1 to 4 of The Aviators are now available on DVD and Blu-ray. For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv. From our official home at the Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we'll see you next week on The Aviators.